in, and I'm gonna hand it over to Nick Cruz here from Revolutionary Blackout Network.
All right, thank you. So, do you guys understand that more children was killed in Gaza in the last 7-8 months now? Actually, I'm gonna say 5 because this is when I got the data point because it's way worse now. So in the first 5 months of Gaza, more children was killed in the last 5 years of all wars combined. All wars combined. So we're speaking at Kansas University, KU, bring back memories. You know, people in Gaza, they have no university to go to. Israel wiped them all out. What was once considered off limits, hospitals. Barack Obama drone strike the hospital once and they went on an apology tour for a week. Now you have in Gaza, Israel wipe out the entire medical infrastructure in Gaza. And we are living in a society that's pretending this is normal. We have the International Criminal Court. It's rumored that they are going to issue an arrest warrant on Benjamin Netanyahu. The response of the Biden administration and the United States government is to threaten the International Court of Justice with sanctions and throwing their weight to protect a genocidal regime. And as all this is happening, we have young people seeing how lawless our government is becoming in the streets. And we are being met with a massive police state that is retaliating with massive force, and they also train with the IDF as well. Just what a coincidence. So we have the ruling class that is rebelling against the concept of international law. Do you want to know what I find to be beautiful in a way, since we're talking about something a little bit negative? We have South Africa, who challenged Israel in the West in the International Court of Justice. Now, think about the lawyers, the judges, the legal team for South Africa. What did they grow up under? They grew up under apartheid, supported by the United States and the West, that was bankrolled and supported by Israel. So think about what's more inspiring than this. You have children that grew up under apartheid, under immense poverty and oppression, who then learned Western law. They learned the rules that the West created. They mastered the law. This is not the rules that they made. These are the rules that the Western imposed on the global South. They mastered the law, and now they took the West and Israel to court, and now that court found that they were plausibly committing a genocide. You want to know what the reaction of the United States was? There was a bill that they sent to Congress where they're now evaluating the relationship we have with South Africa because we are holding Israel accountable. So as they call students and young people who I have great admiration for, Gen Z is deeply motivational. Right now, you have what is even called the liberal media calling these people terrorist sympathizers, as our entire ruling class is rebelling against the concept of international law, where they will say, well, Israel is justified in doing what they're doing because of October 7th. We can ignore the reports that came out that show that IDF murdered more Israeli citizens. We can ignore that. Let's bring up the fact that under international law, there is no exception for revenge. So even if we was to accept the arguments that you guys are making against Hamas, that does not give the United States and Israel the right to commit massive human rights violations and break international law. Collective punishment is a war crime. So when you hear Israeli officials, even we covered Lindsey Graham, we covered many people in Congress that said we need to dispel the notion that there's an innocent Palestinian. I want you guys to understand that when someone does that, they are advocating for terrorist ideology. And I know that you probably had a lot to say, so I'm gonna pass to you soon, but do you guys understand? I'm gonna put it like this. How will you guys define a terrorist? I've been begging people to use the words the way they're meant to be used. A terrorist is someone who believes that they should be able to have the right to take out the enemy without regards to international law. A terrorist is someone who believes they have the right to take out their enemy, and there are no red lines. Now, I'm gonna ask you guys: have CNN, MSNBC, or anyone else ever defined what a terrorist is? So, according to Israeli logic, because of October 7th, they have the right to bomb hospitals, they have the right to bomb schools, they have the right to put military-aged men in concentration camps where they are now suffering right now, all because they suffer October 7th. This alone is a war crime. Using starvation as a tool of war is a war crime. The Biden administration had a statement where they said that Israel is now considering letting aid into Gaza. And I don't know if the geniuses in the Biden administration understood that that was a sentence of guilt. Because if they're allowing aid to go into Gaza, that means they was blocking it.
What's popping? My friends, my family. What's popping? We have a special edition of RBN Live. What's good, my brother Rome?
Man, what's popping with you?
Oh boy, we got Nick and Rome at noon today. My boy Rome joining us. We have a fantastic episode. Dr. Joe Stein should be joining us here very soon. And I want to thank them for inviting me to KU because I am an organizer. I am someone who cares to build. I am an educator. RBN, and this is my position, and this is what I've been consistent on for years. I'm willing to work and build with anyone who's willing to offer the hand, who shares similar politics. So as you have the majority of the boutique left, the professional managerial class left, and I'm talking about 90% of the people that you guys probably know, who act like they can't see me, but they're looking at me. Act like they can't see Rome, but they're looking right at Rome. Ask you guys this question. Why are the people that are on the left afraid to be in discourse with Black radicals? Now, I'm not begging to be included in people's spaces. I'm building my own. But I think it says a lot that people like Dr. Jill Stein and John Braca, who you guys saw on my show yesterday, they want to hear from us as well. They want to build what we are building, what Rome is building. What's popping, Rome? Good to have you join me today.
Oh, shit, man, it's a good day. It's a good day. What is today? Friday? Oh, yeah, man. It's a good Friday. I'm feeling good, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of building, Rome, as we wait for Stein to join us, what's any updates, anything you want to plug? Because I'm gonna be visiting Detroit sometime this summer. I might have to rearrange my plans a little bit because you guys know I've been advocating huge for these public appearances because most of you guys know me as a YouTuber now, but this is how I got started, giving speeches in Black barbershops, organizing my community. This is how I got started. YouTube was after that. This is what I'm more used to. This is more my vibe. You guys see, I'm way more relaxed doing this than I am doing my shows. I'm nervous as hell right now. I've been YouTube nervous as hell, but when I actually go to rallies, organize, give speeches like my speeches Medicare for All, it's nothing. Nice and relaxed. I'm around my homies, so I can't wait to be in Detroit sometime this summer, maybe this fall. I'm heading to Chicago. I'm supposed to be speaking at the Worker Strike Back event because that's the big push. I want to do more of these speeches and public events. So maybe sometime after that, I want to be in Detroit. But what's popping with the library? What's popping with what you're doing, Rome, as we wait for Dr. Stein?
Oh, man, I can't wait to see you up here, man. But yeah, as y'all know, we are building a library up here in Detroit. If you didn't know, we are building a library here in Detroit. I have been taking a break from it. I've been going hard, but I'm damn near done. But you know, it's always like that. As soon as you about to get done, or you see the finish line, it just seem like it's just further, or some weights just slow you down for some reason. But we should have it up and running before you even get here. If not, I say the latest I will have it. If I don't have it open this summer, I would have it open on the anniversary that I actually got the building. That was October 14th, I believe. So if I don't have it open this summer, I'm gonna just do it for the fall and whatnot. But for right now, I'm not even worried about that. Right now, we're doing a giveaway for a homeless shelter for women in distress and whatnot. They reached out to me to ask me if I can get them some hygiene products, if I can get them some summer clothing, dresses, and shit like that. So if you guys want to help me out with that, you can donate to Tour for the Poor. Cash App Tour for the Poor, Venmo Tour for the Poor, and PayPal Unholy Room 6. You can give any amount. It really don't matter, 5, 10. Book donations, you could, damn. I think I got my other Twitter page back, but I don't want to go. I'm gonna put the address up here for you guys. So if anybody want to send book donations, I'm gonna have the address down here later on for you guys.
Yeah, man, I cannot wait, man. And you don't have to say anything because you guys know I'm the RBN hype man. People don't like bragging, so it's hard to accept praise, but just sit there and take it, man. Because what Rome is doing is some legendary shit right now, man. Like, legendary activists are usually not talked about until after they're dead. But I'm seeing what Rome has built. I have followed Rome since day one. I said many times before, Rome is my right hand. Well, I'm Rome's right hand man. Let me rephrase that shit. I'm Rome's right hand man. I could there's no RBN. There's no way I could be doing this shit without Rome. I'm very thankful for the push. Like, Rome motivates so many people do this shit. Help started this RBN apparatus. It's great to see what you're doing. I can't wait to go in Detroit. I got friends and homies in Detroit too. I think we're gonna have a good time. So Chicago, then I'm gonna be in Detroit. So I'm looking forward to that. Dr. Stein will be here in a few minutes. See, I got updates. She's running a little bit late, guys, but it's all good. So I'm gonna tell you guys what I was talking about in my speech because you guys know me. We had Dr. Jill Stein on before she ran for president again. Just like I had Jose Vega on. He's running for office.
Mm-hmm.
Jose Vega, like, man, I'm nervous as hell to go on your show because I'm running for office. I was like, oh yeah, damn, I forgot. Like, that's like a side point to me usually. These are just people I like talking to. I enjoy talking to Dr. Stein even before she ran for president. So it's like, hey, yo, we can have Dr. Stein. We can talk about these important issues. We can educate the proletariat, the RBN community. Oh, yeah, she also was on the ballot, too. It's whatever. You know what I mean? That's how I approach it. And Rome, this is what I'm talking about in my speech. This is the kind of rhetoric that is getting people fired. Our brother Q Anthony Ali.
Yeah, man.
I may put a segment to the side. We're gonna cover that later. I may invite my brother Q Anthony Ali back. I just had him back on. My brother Q Anthony be spitting. My friend, I just sit back, bro. I don't even try to make it out. I don't even try to do a show when we have Q Anthony Ali anymore. That motherfucker spit fire.
Yeah.
And when you say facts like the Hannibal Directive was used by Israel. When you bring up the facts, the UN investigation debunked the lies that there was systemic sexual violence led by Hamas. When you just quote basic international law, saying that the West, your guys' definition of Hamas or terrorism is not true, because indigenous colonized people have the right to legal armed defense. So the Western idea, in fact, the real terrorists we see are people in the West. So look at this, Ron. I want you to chime in as well. Look at this. The UN finds at least 14 Israelis likely intentionally killed by own army on October 7th.
And this is something that we've been calling out. We've been calling this out just like we called out the mysterious 40 beheaded babies that appeared and disappeared out of nowhere. So, yeah, like, and this is going to happen when they continue to investigate and don't let Israel investigate themselves. We're going to find out a lot of this shit. We're going to find out way more skeletons that's buried under the rubble.
Meanwhile, and it's still repeated as fact, these unhinged genocidal lies. What the Zionists have done can never be forgiven. At this point, it's about ending the Zionist entity because they projected their rape culture onto the Palestinians. Everything that they told you about October 7th was a lie, and people are having a hard time dealing with this.
It was projection.
So I'm gonna show you guys another receipt, and I see you, Dr. Stein. Thank you for joining. I'm gonna introduce you as I finish my thought here. And as you have Zionists smearing Palestinians, essentially our Arabs, as rapists, and the majority of the West, well, I wouldn't say the majority, I would say the Western elites. That's the more accurate way to put it. The Western elites and the Zionists, they believe in their followers and their cronies because they're deeply racist. Of course, the Arabs are racist or rapists. The same way that white people believed the rape hoax that was spread on black men, because of course black men are savage rapists. The same way that white people believe the rape hoax smeared on indigenous men, because of course indigenous men are violent, brutal rapists. You guys see this trend, what they constantly doing, this constant cycle. So you had a UN that exposed how there was no evidence of systemic sexual violence. Meanwhile, as that's getting blown up, and I'm gonna bring you in, Stein, with this last thought. You have the UN that finds evidence of systemic Israeli sexual violence. So no evidence of Hamas systemic violence. And I'm emphasizing this because there's no rape kits, there's no testimonies, there's no evidence of anyone being raped. But we all have the caveat that things can happen in war. And just because we don't have evidence that something happened, don't mean that there wasn't sexual violence. But there is quite literally no evidence that Hamas drew up a memo and said, as we are doing this extremely successful military operation where we got time checkpoints, as we have Apache helicopters shooting at us, we had the IDF shooting at us, you have armed Israeli citizens shooting at us, we are taking timeout and 10-minute rape breaks. Does anyone believe that?
I'm sorry.
Absurd to believe. And Ron, I'll pass you, and then let's bring in our guests and we discuss more.
Rape isn't funny, but goddamn, them lies it's hilarious, man. They lie. It's just so hilarious because nobody is even thinking about some shit like that. The last thing I would be thinking about in a war zone is getting my damn rocks off.
Imagine you seeing people like. Do you guys know hundreds of Hamas soldiers died on October 7th? They never tell you this. So hundreds of Hamas soldiers died. So think about this. Humanize your enemies for once. Imagine we're going to war, Rome. You're my brother. I love you, my brother. Imagine we're going to Rome, going to war, and you watch me get brutally murdered. Like Apache helicopter fire something, my head go clear off, like some brutal ass shit. And then as you're witnessing your close comrades who you're fighting arms with, who you're close with, who you're friends with, who you're brothers with, and as you're watching your people die, you also got a heart on. And you're ready to have sex too. Does this even make sense? Unless you have an insanely barbaric view of Palestinians. Right. Anyway, let's bring our guests in.
Like motherfuckers, Genghis Khan out here.
Sorry to bring you in while it's so rowdy. My good friend, Dr. Joe Stein, candidate for the Green Party for president, great activist and organizer as well. Thank you for taking time. Great to have you on RBN once again, Dr. Stein.
It's an honor to be with you both, Nick and Rome. Really great to be here. Love your fighting spirit. I mean, we need that, by orders of magnitude. May it spread far and wide. Yeah,
and it was I had a great time at KU, and I think we tore the house down. Like the duo that we had, like just spitting facts. And the best thing about doing those public engagements is that you can see people's eyes light up in the room, because I can't see you guys. I see the chat, I see the likes, but those are like numbers and metrics. But it's different when you see people with like the dots connect. And that's why I'm glad you invited me. I'm thankful for that. And I am looking forward to spending my time, the rest of my life, dismantling Zionism and their propaganda the way you guys are saying right now. So Ron, I'll pass to you, Dr. Stein, before we continue.
Great. Yeah. Sorry, Rome, you're gonna.
No, I just want to say thank you for coming. It's nice seeing you again. Hopefully we'll be seeing each other in person again. I see you up in Michigan. I'll be traveling around pretty soon, so I'm pretty sure we'll bump into each other soon enough.
Yeah, great. And what you're saying, Nick, about how great it was to be there, doing a live forum together, exposing Zionism, working with the students, supporting their fight back. That was just awesome. And that is what is happening. I'm now pulled over in a gas station, actually. One place we could find shade here in this, 100-degree Nashville. We're outside of Nashville. Actually, we're outside of Birmingham right now in Alabama. It's unbelievably hot. So we have shade. The only place we could find it here in a gas station, sign of the times. And we were in yesterday we were in Nashville, and before that we were in Fort Wayne, Indiana, in these most unlikely, centers of red Republican power. The fight is really going strong, and the anti-genocide movement, the movement against, Israeli Zionist apartheid and massacres, it's like the thing. It is like the most mobilizing thing right now. It's kind of miraculous that in the middle of this incredible, genocide, we are seeing such a revival of, the fight for democracy and to dismantle empire and oligarchy and to stand up and fight fascism. And I don't know if you guys have seen the news today about the draft coming back, about the draft having been worked, the conscription, automatic conscription of everyone between 18 and 25 is written now. It was inserted, silently, like in a Trojan horse. It was inserted into the National Defense Authorization Act, which is a must-pass bill inserted by our friends, the Democrats, the lesser evil Democrats who are, leading the charge here on war and fascism. They've now led the way to the redevelopment, the reauthorization of the draft, laying the groundwork for, everything else that we see them laying the groundwork for. That is, World War III, basically, which we are, just accelerating towards right now under bipartisan leadership, but with the Democrats taking a real leadership role here. It's absolutely outrageous, and it's going to be very hard to stop this. It's going to require just incredible gymnastics. It's thought that it's going to also be proposed in the Senate. It was inserted by the House on a voice vote, basically by the House Selective Service Committee. Oh no, it was the Armed Services Committee, inserted by the Democrats, authorized on a voice vote. This is just like an outrage against democracy. This is fascism in action, which we are seeing here in the canceling of press, like Breonna Joy Gray, who was just, fired for speaking out and telling the truth and exposing what Zionist fascism is all about, and we're just seeing this all over the place. We need to start a big GoFundMe, what's his name? Norm Finkelstein, I heard, was also just banned from the Hill, but I think effectively he's been banned from the Hill, for a long time. I guess maybe they just made it formal or something. But, the empire is really doubling down because the people are rising up, in all kinds of ways right now. The fight is just really going strong. And we're seeing this so much in our campaign. We're also seeing the empire fight back by trying to throw us off the ballot and trying to keep us off the ballot, because we are the only anti-genocide, pro-worker campaign on track to actually be a challenge to empire across the country. If you're going to challenge empire, you can't just do it in a handful of states. You've really got to do it full bore. So, we're going to court in New York to fight back against their very anti-democratic ballot access laws, where they tripled the requirement, secretly in a budget bill 2 years ago. This is the first time we went to court back then to try to stop this new law, this draconian anti-democratic ballot law in New York. We went to court. We went all the way up to the Supreme Court. Of course, they wouldn't hear it. And everything that we said has now been proven. We now have the facts to show that this basically allows only the billionaire candidates that either have $1 billion themselves, like RFK, or, his running mate and his Zionist sponsors have very deep pockets. And then you have the multi-billion-dollar war machine candidates from the Democrats and the Republicans. So they can get on the ballot. But those are the only choices. New York is left with fewer presidential candidates than any other state. So we're going to take this law back to court. And we just heard that we have just been challenged in Nevada, where we qualified with 3 times the number of signatures. The Democratic Party is now taking us. They have filed an injunction to try to keep us off the ballot based on frivolous reasons. It won't last, but this is how they exhaust your resources.
Yep.
This is how they bleed you dry. This is how they force you to hire lawyers and get tied up into court. This is what they did with Ralph Nader in 2004, where they launched 20 simultaneous lawsuits against him to keep him off the ballot. That's what they're doing now. So I just really want to urge everyone, to just keep up the fight and to fight back. There are 1 million people who are hanging by a thread that the UN says will die in the next month. 1 million people are going to starve to death in Gaza in the next month, thanks to the US and Israel. And our only hope here is to, Israel isn't going to do this just for asking. They must be forced into it. They have nuclear weapons. It's not like we can send in the troops or something. Israel is going to fight here. We must force Israel, into compliance with international law and human rights. And that requires a massive BDS initiative globally. It's like what was just done to Starbucks has to be done many times over to Israel. And Joe Biden's hand needs to be forced. He could stop this. He just sponsored a resolution before the Security Council in the UN. That was great. And for the first time, there was a unanimous vote. The US went from stopping these resolutions to suddenly now we're promoting a resolution, which is actually a knockoff from what Hamas proposed only a couple of weeks ago. Hamas has agreed, Israel has not. Even with that resolution, that is not going to move Israel. We know that. One thing that will move Israel is to deny it all funding and all weapons, because then it is a sitting duck. And it knows that. So this is the only way to force Israel's compliance. And, as Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand. We have to make that demand, in every way possible. But that includes by challenging empire politically. And I really encourage people to help be a part of this ballot drive. We can't challenge empire unless we are on the ballot in every state or just about every state. And if you have spare change to throw into the hat, we need that too, because we got to hire lawyers and also, support petitioners and organizers and all that. So the fight is in our hands.
We got to defend democracy by kicking off choices and making less choices. That's how we defend democracy, by giving people less choices. And I'm gonna show you guys. Hopefully, you got enough time. We're only gonna do around an hour today. But on the G7, it was very hilarious when you see all the leaders. Like Joe Biden is a historically unpopular president, but he was like the second most popular in the G7. So we have this massive capitalist authoritarian dictatorship. I call it dictatorship of capital that developed in the West, where you have all these massively unpopular leaders. But what they're doing is they're making it impossible by weaponizing their capital for anyone to challenge them through their bourgeoisie system. And then anyone who hit the streets, this because you was violently arrested, because Stein isn't more than just electoral. It's about hitting the streets as well, which I gave you props for at the event at KU, and I still do, for not just being some person who put himself on the ballot. You actually got brutally arrested like her team, because more than just electoral. That's just my position. You got to have active movement. You got to put pressure on the street. But the establishment knows this as well. So what they're doing right now, they got cop cities popping up everywhere. Then you have police budgets that are arriving. It's more than military budgets. You have the ruling class that's planning to go to war with their own people. I went on another rant.
Joe Biden actually said something about that. He said, if you guys want to fight, you're going to need some F-15s, whatever the hell he said. He mentioned this, And as far as the Greens being tied up, this is just their whole shindig. They know that they're not going to win. They're not going to win something like this. Sometimes they will. Most of the times they won't, and they're going to keep the Greens tied up in court and do whatever it takes, dry up all the resources that we give. And this is why we got to push back. I remember getting in trouble about saying I support voter oppression against the Democratic Party. And it was just
I remember people got pissed. I remember that.
Yeah. And it was about the Greens getting kicked off of the ballot that year. The Greens got kicked off the ballot again. And I said, you know what? I'm not even a voter, and that shit is pissing me off, So yeah, we gotta definitely protect these third parties and make sure, even if you don't agree with everything that they are doing or whoever their mouthpiece is at the time, you got to look at the policies. And a lot of you want to play You know what I'm saying? You want a hero to worship. There is no hero to worship.
There's no
are
shortcuts.
these are leaders, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes they might not come in our shade or might not talk like us, but look at the platform. If you love what you see on the platform, then fight for that and make sure that we can get the Greens back on these ballots. Make sure we can keep eyes on the Greens and keep ears on the Greens, because the people don't even know that this is going on. My mother didn't even know that the Greens was kicked off of the party, off of the ballot multiple times, you know, how they had to fight here in Michigan multiple times, you know, but.
Yeah, and the Democrats actually had the gall to announce they're that clueless that they don't even understand that this is an assault on the last dying remnants of our democracy. They announced proudly that they had hired an army of lawyers to throw their competition off the ballot, which means basically denying people choices, denying people a chance to make this election a referendum on genocide, which the majority of the American people vehemently oppose. And there the Democrats go, announcing proudly that they're going to deny you your right to choose who to vote for. If you're not choosing who to vote for, you don't have a right to vote. So it's an absolute slap in the face to just the most basic principles of democracy. And they're proudly announcing, that they are the Department of Dirty Tricks and Corruption. And, in 2022, they impersonated the Green Party and made phone calls to people who had signed the petition to get Matt Howe, an anti-war candidate, Green candidate, on the ballot for Senate. They called the people who signed that petition saying that they were the Green Party. They impersonated the Green Party, said that they were the Green Party, and would you please take your name off the petition? Well, they happened to call the co-chair of the Green Party to tell him this. And he turned on his recording device he had so that he had actual evidence that they were basically committing fraud. If this is not election fraud, what is? And they were able to get a conviction in court and also overturn, the action of the Democrats to get Matt Howe back on the ballot. But that was so late in the cycle, he couldn't really effectively compete. But this is the norm. This is not the exception. This is what they do. They are basically the Department of Dirty Tricks. And we also found them advertising for infiltrators. There's no doubt that they do this. And in fact, they may have contributed to some of the difficulty in New York, because there were two professional agencies, which we knew had also done work for Democrats, but supposedly they were going to be assisting and providing some signatures, which they said they were on track and they were going to provide. And at the end of the day, they did not. So, that would have made the critical difference to have put us over the threshold. So there's no doubt that they are doing exactly what they said that they would do. They are messing with us. They are really, the height of corruption, dirty tricks, and just an assault on democracy.
You guys are messing up their Tom and Jerry episode. You're messing with the strip. They have the strip of going back and forth. I'm the bad guy. You're the bad guy. And if the Greens get in the way, people are going to have an escape. They're going to have a different party to go to. Somebody that's actually to the Democratic Party left. On everything, especially reparations. It can be another party for the black voters. So they don't like you messing up this strip. They don't like you going against the strip.
Yeah, on reparations, on universal rent control across the country, on healthcare as a human right for everyone. On taxing the rich and cutting the taxes on working people, on free public higher education, canceling student debt, canceling medical debt, and above all, slashing the military budget, which endangers us and impoverishes us. This doesn't make us safer. This is a huge repository of money. Anytime they want to throw more hundreds of billions into the war in Ukraine. Biden is saying that we've signed on for another 10 years in this absolutely unwinnable and catastrophic war, where they've now, accelerated the war. They've expanded the war. So we're now sending U.S. and NATO missiles, doing missile strikes into actual Russian territory. This is just insane, and has provoked Russia now not only to talk about using nuclear weapons, but, and I haven't yet confirmed this, but initial reports are that Russia is now sending its missiles and its warships to
Hypersonic.
Cuba.
Yep.
Yeah. And hypersonic missiles, we don't have defenses against that.
Yep.
It's like, it's not only like crazy that our misleaders, our criminal misleaders are, engaging in this arms race now, but it's also like the most just self-destructive thing that they could possibly do, because Russia is actually ahead of us in this arms race. And we're basically now going toe to toe, daring them to accelerate and to keep going down this slippery slope towards nuclear confrontation. This is like the Cuban Missile Crisis of the 1960s, the early 60s. This is like all of that all over again. And remember, at that time, the US had placed nuclear missiles in striking distance of Moscow in Turkey. And in response to that, Russia put its missiles in Cuba. When that happened, the US launched our nuclear weapons. They were in the air. We were ready to go to nuclear war to get these nuclear weapons off of our border. Yet we had just done the same thing to Russia. So against their advisors' wishes, both Gorbachev and Kennedy had the good sense to sit down and negotiate, and they both agreed to remove their missiles. That's what we should be doing, not accelerating this madness. Our leadership is clueless about negotiations and diplomacy. They don't have a clue that that's what they need to be doing here. They're just digging in. But this is basically the Cuban Missile Crisis in reverse. How can people not understand that Russia is sensitive about having nuclear missiles within 10 minutes striking distance of Moscow? How can they not get that? How can they not get that Russia is touchy about its border with Ukraine, which has been the pathway for invading Russia multiple times over the course of history, most recently in the Second World War, where Russia lost 27 million people? How can we not get that? We're touchy about our borders. Of course, Russia's going to be touchy about his. All Russia wanted was neutrality from Ukraine. Neutrality from Ukraine. That's all they wanted. And they agreed before the war to the Minsk Accords, which could have avoided all of this. But the US and the West did not support those accords. And then once the war was ongoing, there was a treaty that was actually negotiated under the leadership of Turkey that was ready to go within 2 months, that the US and the UK disrupted. So, the common denominator here is that is the US empire. The US empire is engaging in these catastrophic wars all over the world. These wars are impoverishing us, making it impossible for us to meet human needs here at home for housing and education and healthcare. And it's endangering all of us, leading to a nuclear exchange, which is like deadly for the whole world wherever it happens. Our clueless leadership thinks that, it'll be over there, so no problem. That's not true. You know what? When you see that mushroom cloud, think of it as a conveyor belt. It's moving debris into the upper atmosphere where it does not settle down. So then we all starve, basically. So one nuclear armed submarine contains 5,000 Hiroshima bombs. The equivalent of 5,000 Hiroshima bombs are in one nuclear sub. We've got 14 of them. And 5,000 Hiroshima bombs is many times over what it takes basically to kill us all off. So we cannot even be thinking about going in that direction. But that's where,
they're ready to hide in their bunkers.
What's that?
They're ready to hide in their bunkers. They know they will be okay.
They won't be okay. They won't be okay in their bunkers. That's what they don't know. They are being scammed here as well. They're not going to be okay.
That's a good point. A good point.
They're totally scammed.
So as they are pushing the idea that Putin and Russia are rank authoritarians, and I'm one of the few people that actually define what authoritarian actually mean whether you govern with a mandate or not. Like you can't. That's why socialism is not authoritarian. When you have a revolution, that inherently can't be authoritarian because you're enforcing the will of the people, the will of the proletariat, the dictatorship of the proletariat, decolonize your mind. What authoritarianism is when you have government action. We have government that is not beholden to the will of the people. Now, this coincides with capitalism, because under a capitalist structure, you have capital that make the decisions of the government. So then the government no longer beholden to the people, beholden to capital. Then you have a government that goes rogue, which is fascism and authoritarianism, which is not what they have in China or Russia, where no matter what your small fucking criticism of these countries are, the majority of their population support their government. Xi Jinping and Putin have a massive approval rating compared to this, where Joe Biden, one of the most historically unpopular presidents, is the second most popular leader in the G7. So, Jill Stein, I'll pass it to you. I want you to speak more on this.
Because these people ain't even elected. That's the funny part. This motherfucker just lost this election. What the fuck is he even doing there?
I want to pass it to you, Dr. Stein, because you have Europe that is paying. There's a 500% energy increase since the start of 2022 for Europe. You have the economy in the UK that is in complete shambles, let alone Russia and a lot of these other countries. So I want you to speak on the strategy from the ruling class in the West and how they completely failed. And now you have Russia, which is the fourth largest economy in the world, like completely failed. I want to pass it to you again before we switch topics on this. Anything you want to add, Dr. Stein?
I would just add that, we're seeing neoliberalism, play out here. We're seeing, the financialization of our economy. We're seeing, the decimation of a working economy, a manufacturing economy. That's true in the U.S. It's true to some extent in Europe. Europe was especially hit by the blow up of the Nord Stream pipeline. Yes. Europe lost its affordable energy. This is a major driver of the inflation and the economic crisis in Europe. And the U.S. is hijacking this and working to fill the gap. And this is like payday for the fossil fuel companies. Joe Biden has authorized under his watch the production of 22 new liquid natural gas export facilities, which is like a big, this is a big profiteering victory for fossil fuels. But the prices have just skyrocketed, and this is destroying the economy of Europe. So this kind of far right shift that Europe is just experienced with the latest parliamentary EU elections. This is kind of like the logical consequence of the economy having screwed over here by the neoliberal policies being led by the U.S. and the escalation of fuel costs, which then translates in greater food costs as well. So this is an incredible crisis for the economy of Europe, but in many ways this ties back to the actions of the U.S. here. So this is like, this is empire again, just caving in on itself. This is the collapse of the U.S. empire, whose military domination is, it's a joke. We challenge all over the world, and we have lost every war, arguably since Vietnam, but especially all the post 9/11 wars have been absolutely catastrophic, murder millions of people unnecessarily, and are devastating to the U.S. economy as well, because this is where our money is going. It's a big, huge subsidy for the military-industrial complex, for the war profiteers and the war production companies. That's who's winning here, and this is again is why we need to throw the bums out. And it's really important that the opposition here, the people-powered opposition, which is us, get to the microphone and be able to debate and be able to connect the dots for the American people, because people are not happy campers. Automatically, people are in opposition to both of these parties and are ready to go. RFK should not stand alone as the only opposition party, because he's basically, same old on Zionism and this expanding war in the Middle East, which is absolutely as dangerous as all the other wars.
Yeah, well,
so again, let me just throw out, just to put in there, Our website is jillstein2024.com. So if you want to challenge empire, which is coming for your kids right now in the form of a automatic conscription and registration for the draft, Joe Biden can then declare an emergency and draft your kids. If you don't want to see that happen, if you are a if you're a young person yourself and sitting on the sidelines, they are coming for you. I don't think we can afford to sit this one out. We need to use all the tools at our disposal. And that means a social movement out in the streets, and it means a political movement in the halls of power. If you don't challenge the halls of power, all you do out in the streets will amount to a hill of beans. We have to actually challenge power where it hurts. That's what Frederick Douglass said when he said power concedes nothing without a demand. We have to make it happen both in the streets, and we have to basically remove the criminal misleadership from the halls of power.
Rome, what
Yeah, touching on that draft, I think just like they underestimate their quote unquote enemies of this world, they are underestimating the people that will actually go and fight for this damn country. I don't think it's gonna be too many young people out there that's gonna be hyped to go and kill some brown people for BlackRock or some oil execs. And they know where this money come from. They know who fund these politicians. Everybody know. So I think they are underestimating the education of these kids nowadays.
Yeah, and
exactly. I mean, in the same way that the encampment on campuses, they're
breaking up.
And
Hold on,
Dr. I think you're breaking up pretty bad. You probably had to find a better. I don't know where you was earlier, but I think whatever happened, you're breaking up pretty badly.
Okay,
now.
hang on 1 second. I'm in the same spot. Hang on 1 second. Okay, someone's using Wi-Fi outside of the car. Let me just get to them. Kelly, we're gonna have to do it. You're gonna have to lean forward and work the switch. Can you come up? Sorry, we're trying to.
Don't mind me.
All right. Yeah.
Please.
Okay. There we go. All right. Great.
You walking away.
All right, so I'm gonna share this because people have no idea like how depraved Biden has been, and you had his staff that was putting reports together that would have exposed Israeli war crimes against Palestinians when you had the Biden administration saying that, oh, there's no evidence that Israel committed war crimes. So Biden's staff was putting reports together which had evidence of Israel committing war crimes, and the response of the Biden administration was to fire those employees. Like, people have no idea the depth and depravity that we are dealing with Biden, the same person who lied about UNRWA and said that it was a terrorist organization, and then defunded UNRWA, provided cover for Israel and intelligence as they commit a famine. What you said going to lead to 1 million people dying of famine. Like,
in a month.
You can see dead babies right now. But go ahead, Stein.
Yeah, no, just underscoring. Yeah, we're looking at 1 million people who are starving now and who will be dead in the next month. 1 million people in Gaza. And to your point about, Israel's lies about UNRWA, all other countries except the U.S. have now restored funding to UNRWA. The U.S. should be restoring funding to UNRWA. Israel's, propaganda, their vicious propaganda, everything Israel says should be presumed to be a lie until proven otherwise. It's like, when have they ever told the truth? It's like everything that they claim is disproven.
I think it's a confession. I think every time they say something, we should look into it. Like, hey, what did you do now, motherfucker? I think it's a confession, because every time they say something, like the beheaded babies we was talking about earlier, turns out Israel is the one that's beheading babies. So, yeah. I think every time
that's why it's upon us to take the strategy they have unsuccessfully used against third-party activists. Well, I will speak for myself, at least, where I am unapologetically vote shaming like a motherfucker this year, because what kind of person vote for the depravity of Biden? There are a lot of these sheepdoggers, these people who try to hijack the abandoned Biden movement. Well, they would say stuff like, Biden still has time to change things around. Biden need to listen to us. No, at this point, it's been over. Like, he's a criminal of the highest order, and people need to leave the party. There should be, if you are voting for a party that committed genocide, you should let that party a long time ago. And it's insane that people will even say that Biden had to take these steps to win back my vote. No, that vote has been gone. We're actively vote shaming. The only thing that we should be focused on right now is massive mobilization, pressure on the state, building mutual aid societies, building our own government structures up, and getting preparation to challenge the state. I passed it to Stein, and just so you guys know, I want to cover the Putin peace proposal story, and then I have just a few quick rapid fire questions for Dr. Stein after that, so we don't have too much longer. I just want to cover those two things, but I'll pass it to you guys if you guys have anything you want to add before we continue.
Nothing, substantively different, except to say that, we're watching the world in collapse. We're watching half of all people who rent their housing now are one paycheck away from eviction. And when you get evicted, your mortality goes up, your illness goes up, your mental health goes down the tubes. That's just like one dimension of it. And then there are tens of millions who don't have health care, 44 million young people locked into student debt, 100 million locked into medical debt. The climate is crashing and burning. Our resources, meanwhile, are being drained fighting these catastrophic wars that are murdering millions of people and only endangering the world. So it's like, what's wrong with this picture? Everything is wrong with this picture. And to think that you are not part of it, is just a mistake. And to also think that you don't have the power is also a mistake. And I want to quote Alice Walker, who said, the biggest way people give up power is by not knowing we have it to start with. We have majority support here, whether it's for, rent control, whether it's for housing, whether it is to cut the military budget, for a guaranteed minimum income above poverty. There's enormous support for all of this. We can bring that to bear by working together and asserting our political power. And I just urge people, the draft is coming for you, and the U.S. Israel policy is coming for 1 million lives in Gaza right now. We can't afford not to use our power. This is about using our power and working together to make that happen in all the ways that Nick just mentioned, through mutual aid, through, taking local office, standing for local office, or creating our own shadow governments. There are just so many ways we can assert power, but that includes using the electoral structure. It's not, it's not a slam dunk by any means, but it does allow us to assert power. And whether we, let me point out also, there are going to be 3 pro-genocide candidates on the ballot, splitting the pro-genocide vote for president. Trump, Biden, and RFK. These are all pro-war, pro-genocide, anti-worker candidates. They will be splitting the pro-war vote. If we're on the ballot across the country, we will be unifying the anti-war, anti-genocide, pro-worker vote. And in a 4-way race, it can be won with as little as 26% of the vote. So I wouldn't rule out, that we have enormous impact here, not only to shake the system to its core, but potentially to even win the White House. I would not rule that out. We have the power here. And, this is all about our getting organized at the local and national level to continue this fight in every route that we can fight it. This is a national emergency. Some of the former Panthers are calling for a united front against fascism. Fascism is here. Obviously, it's not waiting for Donald Trump. It's here in so many ways. The cop cities that are being built all over the country in the 1033 program that's basically equipping our local police forces with military equipment, with drones, with armored vehicles, with tanks, with tasers. This is the world. Left to its own devices, empire is doubling down, and the people are rising up. And we need to rise up also in the voting booth and assert the political power that we actually have. So I urge people to go check us out at jillstein2024.com, because if we're on the ballot across the country, empire is quaking in its boots at the very thought, which is why they are working now overtime. This is why they've hired an army of lawyers. This is why they've hired infiltrators, because they are terrified that we, the people, should have a voice that they don't control, which is controlled by us.
Well, I love that you actually said that fascism is here now and not doing the Trump derangement bullshit where you're pretending that fascism gonna happen under Trump. We don't have to say any names, but you don't have to do this bullshit pretending that Democrats are somehow the lighter version of fascism. That's a much more effective messaging for a third party candidate. It's great to see that, because Biden, Democrats are are great. Wise brother Gerald Horne said the most effective wing of fascism. They are the most effective evil. They all evil. They all have ambition to dominate the working class and prop up empire. When you look at the liberal class, neoliberal agenda, they are dangerous, and they are implementing fascism right now, and they are bringing World War III behind right at our door. And Rome, I'm gonna pass it to you if you have any questions, but I'm gonna cover this story. I have a hotspot coming out on this story, so I don't need to get too much in depth because that's coming out here in the next few hours. You guys know banger after banger here on RBN. But I want to get your thoughts on this, Stein. I'll cover it briefly because I have a hotspot coming out here soon. Putin pledges truce. So Putin put out his most serious peace deal since Boris Johnson killed the last one. And I got more details on this in my hotspot video, but it's very similar to the Chinese peace proposal. You guys know the Chinese peace proposal that Lula endorsed, that AMLO endorsed, that African leaders across the continent endorsed, that Putin endorsed. As they say, Putin doesn't want peace. Putin endorsed the Chinese peace proposal that told everyone to respect the sovereignties and respect ballot initiatives, which is inconvenient for the West. But Putin put out this very, very serious peace proposal out. And of course, the position of NATO in the West was to deny it. Say, oh, this is a horrible deal. Peace benefits Putin like it benefits Hamas. And what Putin is advocating here is very rational, because if Ukraine took the deal that Boris Johnson took, they will have more territory right now. The same way that Putin is like, we want to freeze all the gains and what you guys have right now, if you guys are willing to withdraw troops from Russian territory. If you guys are willing to respect the current draw out territories right now, there will be peace, which is a savior of Ukraine. This saves Ukraine. You have conscription that we just talking about. The average age of a Ukrainian soldier is 43 years old, 44 years old. You have teenagers that are being forced on the battlefield. This will save Ukraine. And this also, and I pass it to you, Stein, after this thought, this completely debunks the lies spread by neocons that Putin want to take over Ukraine, right? So this deal saves Zelensky. It saves Ukraine. And it debunks their lie that Putin want to take over Europe. So why wouldn't they take this deal? So I said enough. Dr. Stein, I want you to speak more on this. And then I'll pass it to Rome for a question. I have a rapid fire question, and we can begin to wrap up. I want you to speak on this as well.
Yeah, this is really great. And I don't know the details of this, but I will say that every time there has been a peace proposal, Russia has not only supported the peace proposal in theory, at least, but has also agreed to make concessions. It took the breakaway eastern provinces in Ukraine quite a while to convince Putin to allow them to break away and be annexed by Russia. Russia didn't want to do that. Russia has not taken the initiative here. Russia has gone to great lengths to make peace possible, to propose peace in detail. And this was usually just a sort of a restatement of the original Minsk Accords, which Europe had agreed to, everyone had agreed to. There's nothing new. There's no rocket science here. This just continues to disprove the mythology that Russia is, is pursuing an empire. Russia has, has taken control of its borderlands, where its border is being basically taken over by a hostile force. We can understand that. We have done as much. But in terms of launching a larger, force to take over, to be an imperial force in Europe, we haven't seen evidence of that for a long, long time. Our budget, just our budget for the Ukraine war alone is larger than Russia's entire military budget. So that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And it sounds like this is just another indication that Russia is being quite reasonable here and willing to compromise. So absolutely, this sounds promising, and I will certainly be taking a close look at this and looking for your article about this, Nick.
And then the thing is what will Russia actually need to, for them to want to take over Europe and all of these places? What do they need from these places? They are rich with resources. They have some of the best technology, whether that comes to, just computers or war. They have some of the best drones. What would they actually benefit from sending all of these men and women out to kill all of these people, and you get crumbs? Look at the Nord Stream pipeline. Look at all of these pipelines that Russia is sharing with these other countries. They are helping these countries stay up. And why would I do something like that? If I wanted to end Russia, if I wanted to end Europe, I would have took, I would have just blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. I would have blew up both of them. I would have cut off, I would have started putting sanctions on them. I would have put tariffs on them. That's how, that's how I would have moved as a leader if I'm just going to go and want to dictate some shit or take over some land or kill some people. I wouldn't sit here and write out peace plans after peace plan after peace plan. Like, Russia doesn't need anything from you guys. What they need is for NATO to get the fuck off of their border. And that's one of the questions I have for you personally is, as the president, will you pull us out of NATO?
Yeah. I think Europe needs its own, it needs its own structure, not dominated by the U.S. Because basically this is the U.S. dictating foreign policy to Europe, and Europe being kind of dragged around in service of U.S. foreign policy goals. Europe needs, what came out of World War II was this economic security cooperation alliance. I forget the acronym for it, but it's an alliance of European nations similar to the EU, which is not fundamentally about militarism. NATO is basically it's a military alliance which is controlled by the US. It's also a convenient sales marketing tool because all the countries who sign up for NATO have to purchase equipment from US war profiteers. So this is not about a foreign policy based on international law and diplomacy. The UN is supposed to be about that. The UN needs some reform so that it's not continued to, dominated by the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. But we need to move forward with international law and diplomacy and human rights, not a military alliance. And, NATO has basically just been a way that the U.S. does an end run around the UN and an end run around international law. And it's a very unaccountable alliance that's being dragged around by the nose by the US.
Yeah, so this is my last question. In Rome, you can ask the final question if you have one. There's so much to discuss. I'm glad that we've focused the first hour, and that was my intention, to start the first hour focusing on what I think is most important. Well, if you guys watch my show, you guys know I talk about foreign policy 99% of the time anyway. But if you're a commander in chief, that is what you control, and to me, it's absurd that people talk to people running for president, and it happens all the time where people talk to presidential candidates, and the issue of foreign policy never comes up. Like that should be 90% of what you talk about. So we did the first hour covering foreign policy because that's, once again, the main thing you should focus on. when it comes to presidential candidates. Now, I think there's some important question I want to ask as well, because I gotta be blunt here. Howie Hawkins and his wing of the Green Party did substantial damage to the third party movement on the left with their liberal bullshit. I can't, but I gotta be very blunt here. They're pushing a mandates. They're supporting of the Ukraine war. They're advocating for a lesser to evilism. And the Green Party has taken a ton of damage because of what Howie Hawkins has done. And this is something that the Green Party can't run away from. So I want to ask you about this, and we can start with mandate, because the question is about the direction the Green Party went in general, because a lot of people that they lost, and I think there's good reasons for it. Because as socialists, it was clear that the government was making their decisions based on not what was good for the people, because we as socialists, we would make our decisions based on what's good for the people. Our government was making decisions based on what made the profits for big pharma and private health insurers. You had big pharma that made, you have Pfizer, for example, and correct me if I'm wrong, chat, I'm going off my memory here. They made like $1,000 per second.
Yeah,
Or per minute? Was it something like that?
I think it was
Fact check me. They're like something crazy, like $1,000 per minute on the vaccines. And people think they were doing that for public trust. And you had Howie Hawkins and the Green Party pushing mandates, despite the fact that our privately ran healthcare care system was pushing bullshit that wasn't designed to help people increase their profits. And now, something that a lot of people on the left is ignoring are the consequences for this. You have European countries looking to how they was lied about the vaccines, lied about mandates. So I gotta ask you, Dr. Stein, because there's a lot of confusion about this on where the Green Party stand. Mandates and the general COVID agenda is not going away because government lost a lot of trust because of this. So I want to pass it to you, Dr. Stein. Where you stand on mandates and the COVID agenda as a whole?
So on mandates, I don't support mandates. As a healthcare provider, I have never supported mandates. And although I support a lot of vaccinations, but I do not support mandating that people have pharmaceuticals or other treatments injected into their bodies. To me, that's absolutely Orwellian. And the issue is that the regulatory agencies have lost the trust of the American people because they have been bought and paid for, like the rest of our government and our regulatory institutions, our judges, our judiciary, our legislative branch, and the White House. It's all been extremely corrupted by big money. And to me, that is the underlying problem. We need to clean house. And we need different rules of the road here. So we need to close the revolving door between industry. You shouldn't be able to move from Monsanto into the, into the Food and Drug Administration, or from Pfizer or Big Pharma. You shouldn't be able to move from corporations into the agencies that regulate corporations, because we've seen, one of the high-ranking corporate executives in Monsanto rotate into the FDA and give permission to GMOs. We've seen GMOs become permitted under the watch of Monsanto. This is outrageous. We've seen the Sackler family basically dictate the terms of permission for fentanyl and opioids, which have led to 100,000 deaths every year, basically. Based on that, we've seen Boeing corrupt the FAA and put us all at risk, in stepping into an airplane. So, it's like the glue in society has been lost, the confidence. It says in the Declaration of Independence that all just power derives from consent of the governed. The governed no longer consent because we do not have confidence or trust in our governmental institutions. So that has to be fixed. And it's not rocket science how to fix it. You got to close the revolving door so that you can't move from industry into government. You just can't do that. And same thing on money in politics. You know, we have to have publicly financed elections. In my home state in Massachusetts, we passed that. We passed campaign finance reform. We passed public financing as a referendum because, of course, the legislature is not going to regulate itself. You have to do this as a voter referendum. It passed overwhelmingly, and the American public continues to demand that big money be banished from politics. We passed it, and then our Democratic legislature repealed it on a voice vote. This was back in the year 2000, which said to me, that party is absolutely beyond redemption. Yeah. And, you know, it was very clear to me I would never have anything to do with the Democratic Party. So that's where the problem is. And I think we need regulatory institutions. We need them. We need people. You know, I've tried following the data on the COVID vaccine. And if you spend every waking hour doing that, and if you've had, you know, years and years of training and background in virology and immunology and vaccinology, then yeah, you can follow the studies. But short of that, you really can't. And we need expertise which is trustworthy and which is not on the payroll of, you know, of big pharma. So that has to be the case. And you know, we need to persuade people if vaccines or other medications are worth using. People will be persuaded of that. And we need institutions that we can trust. And we should not be in the business of mandating chemical injections into our bodies.
And that's the most important part. And I'm so glad that you said you was against mandates. Yeah. If you guys are curious in Rome, I know you remember this. My conversation with Howie Hawkins, my most infamous interview that many people didn't see, which went horrible, as you guys would imagine. Oh God, because I asked Howie Hawkins about mandates and will you be okay with a single mother with 2 kids being fired for their job and having no way to provide for their kids because they chose not to get a vaccine. He said he had no problem with that. If that's your position, you are absolutely not on the left. You are absolutely an enemy of the working class people. So what I advocate for, because I think a lot of people get this wrong, even people I agree with, because people have been using the COVID issue as a way to destroy class solidarity. There's not enough grace given to people who was victims of COVID propaganda. Because when there was a pandemic that started, there was a lot of confusion, there was a lot of fear, there were a lot of people with health conditions who were scared. So I think we need to have grace for people who were tricked by propaganda, accept mandates. Accept mandates. Because if you was someone who wore a mask, if you're someone who took the vaccine, I did. I ain't always about to trust that shit. But if you took the vaccines, if you wear a mask, I don't give a shit what your personal decisions are. The second you decided to side with the government and say that workers should be fired, I didn't get everything right during COVID, but that was obvious to me. I was on Jimmy Dore. That's something obvious to me that if you're on the left, you absolutely oppose mandates. It's absurd that anyone would take that position. And Howie Hawkins went on a show. He supported mandates. And the Green Party, Jill Stein, is hurt to this day. That's why I had to ask you that question. To this day.
And let me add that the Green Party does not have a uniform position on this whatsoever. That I don't think you could even begin to say that there is a dominant point of view. The views are all over the map. And it was the steering committee that issued that statement about mandates. The steering committee is not authorized to do that. Policy positions have to be taken by the National Committee, which is a much larger body and a more representative body. The steering committee is just like 10 or 12 people. They do not have the authority to set policy. So that whole thing was really a mistake, and it was illegitimate. And yeah, I mean, I regard it as very unfortunate. You know, I think an anti-war policy is much more at the core of where the Green Party is, that it's appropriate, you know, for the Green Party to be taking positions on that. I did not think it was appropriate for the Green Party to be taking a position on a very complicated subject that there's a lot of debate on. It's evolving, it's highly technical, and it's really far afield from the core vision and kind of the unifying values of the Green Party. You know, a lot of the unifying values of the Green Party is not about chemicals. It's not about, pharmaceuticals. The Green Party tends to be on another track in terms of lifestyle and so on. So it was just, I think it was a very unstrategic and basically illegitimate position to have taken.
Rome, I'll give you last question. We already a little bit over time. I appreciate you making time, Dr. Stein, but I want to give Rome. Do you have any other questions, Rome? Any thoughts?
Really, no, I don't really have a question. I'm gonna contact you about the reparations bill that the Green Party has, because I actually wrote a reparations bill, and I think if you guys would like to adopt it, I seen your reparations bill, and I love it. A lot of other people, missed the mark with the corporations that use chattel slavery and they're still alive today, like Citibank, these train stations, and whatnot. And I was just saying, like, how do you feel if we would say not only give Black people reparations, but they get a check 10% off of every corporation that's still alive, that's still around, that use slavery? They get a check off of that total income, whatever they made throughout that year. Because if our people didn't suffer for your corporation, you wouldn't have it today. So how do you feel about Black people and descendants of slavery actually getting not only a check for reparations or land or whatever the fuck it may be, but they actually get a percentage of these corporations that they parents and their ancestors help build with slavery?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really interesting proposal, and I'd love to take a look at it. The reparations proposal that we have now may be different from the Green Party's. I'm not sure, but we have a reparations proposal which is now part of our platform, which is up on our website. If you go to jillstein2024.com and you go to platform and policy, you'll see there's an extensive reparation section which calls for cash, a cash payment to the tune of trillions upon trillions of dollars. In order to, pay for past transgressions, for enslavement, for wrongful death, and for the basically wages owed for having constructed the economy. And it calls for a cash payment, but I think it also leaves open the door to other forms of payment that the community may decide it wants to have. So, it really, if I'm not mistaken, it leaves the door open, and it leaves the community of descendants of slaves some autonomy and, choice about how that will, how this will roll out.
And this is exactly what I want, because if we can open up these doors and have these conversations, we can actually fight in court for better reparations or more reparations with how they target our fathers with the prison industrial complex, how they target our communities with the crack. It's so many things that we are owed for, but slavery is the start. And I believe that if we was to open up these doors, we can actually get people in and get shit going.
And I think that's a really important part of the education around this, that reparations is not just for slavery, which ended in theory, with the Emancipation Proclamation. After slavery, there was then, lynching and Jim Crow and redlining and mass incarceration and, ongoing segregation and, systematic disinvestment and food deserts. And it's just kind of an unending legacy, which is very much alive today. This isn't something that stopped. This is the whole legacy of white supremacy, which lives on. And it's so important that people understand that, this mythology that we're in a post-racial society, it's just nonsense.
Yeah, I'm glad that there's an emphasis on the debt that is owed.
Yeah.
And also changing the infrastructure, because as a revolutionary, and many critics of reparations will say that it doesn't address the structure, and that what radical Black radicals advocate for. Not only the debt owed, but you gotta radically change the system that's currently oppressing Black Americans in the working class. But I'm gonna pass to you for the last thoughts. If you guys have any other questions, because there's literally not enough time to cover stuff that's in Dr. Stein's comprehensive platform. Like, if you're one of the people that said, what Dr. Stein gonna do about what she's talking about? She has one of the most comprehensive platforms that was ever released. I covered the last one. This one more comprehensive than the last one. I would have to spend a whole show alone going over each one of these. So all the people say, what's she gonna do about this? It's in the platform that we gotta fight and organize for. So that's my last plug. Check out the platform if you guys are interested. Jill Stein, I give you the last word. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, it's really great to be with you, and can't thank you enough for, fighting the fight for all of us. And I just want to, go out emphasizing that we are in the perfect storm right now.
Yes.
Empire is doubling down, and people are fighting back, against debt, against pipelines, against, evictions, against against the war contractors, against genocide above all. And genocide is kind of a symbol, it's sort of like the symbol of where we are, where our world is today. It is under assault. It is being destroyed and murdered by empire and oligarchy. And it's not only 2 million people in Gaza, it's really an entire generation that does not have a future, young people who are looking at, a life of debt, of college debt, of inadequate jobs, 60% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, 50% of Americans one paycheck away from being evicted, not having health care. And our resources are being squandered into these increasingly outrageous, extremely dangerous wars that are bringing us really to the brink of nuclear conflict. And 1 million people are going to die in the next month. And that's just in Gaza. That doesn't look at the DRC and the role of the US in basically, as the major source of small arms and weapon sales in general. The entire world has been militarized. Our communities have been militarized. We're looking at 80, 70 cop cities that are being built. This is where our urban budgets are going. This is where our national budget is going. This is the height of insanity. This is an assault on democracy. Fascism is here. They are coming for our kids. And the Democratic Party is leading the charge. So if you are drinking the Kool-Aid still, it's time to get a life. It's time to stop being part of the problem. It's time to stop being part of this assault on all of our lives. Stop being a part of this murderous system, including the torture and murder of children on an industrial scale that's going on in Gaza. It's time to stop murdering the climate. There are reports now of hundreds of monkeys, howler monkeys, that are falling from the trees in the Yucatan in Mexico with these heat waves. Every month now has set a record for the past year. Climate has gone into a state of acceleration. The Colorado River is about to run dry. That matters to everyone because agriculture in California is fed by the Colorado River. When it goes dry, which soon the level in Lake Mead is going to be so low that the water can't get into the distribution system outside of Lake Mead. And that will, hang on one second, and that will basically dry up the source of fruits and vegetables for half the country. We have the Thwaites Glacier, the so-called Doomsday Glacier in the South Pole, in the Antarctic, in the northwest corner of the Antarctic. There is an ice sheet. The Thwaites Glacier is breaking up. It's about to lose its shelf, which is like the break that stops it from this massive ice sheet, which is the size of, I think, Great Britain. It will slide into the ocean. It doesn't have to melt. All it has to do is drop from the rock into the ocean. It's like when you put ice into a cup of water, the water will overflow. That's what happens when the ice falls into the ocean, when it loses its shelf. And there's now a new study showing just more, basically the science is becoming more certain that it is breaking up and it could go really fast. It will be a 2-foot sea level rise when that doomsday glacier breaks up. Think of 2 feet added to
Right.
Pakistan, Bangladesh, New York, Manhattan, Florida, basically any coastal, New Orleans, any coastal region, which is where something like, at least a third of the world population lives. We are looking at mass migrations just that will go ballistic, and the destruction of all infrastructure along the coastlines when that breaks up. And we're heading straight for that. We need to begin, we need to declare the climate emergency, which, by the way, the president has the power to do, to declare a climate emergency and then stop all new fossil fuel infrastructure and to create the jobs to replace that existing infrastructure, which the Democrats don't do. They don't even come near it. They just, please their friends in the corporate green energy industry and, make more electric vehicles, which are not going to solve this problem. Renewable energy doesn't solve the problem. People need renewable alternatives, but nature doesn't care about renewables. Nature cares about fossil fuels. You got to shut that down. And both Biden and Obama, they went way beyond anything that the Republicans have done, and Biden continues to do that. They are not friends of the climate. So this is just to underscore that we are in a state of emergency. And when the president declares that, it also unleashes more than $500 billion every year to begin implementing the Green New Deal and creating the jobs that we need and shoring up our ecosystems, coastal wetlands and coastlines, which are so important for maintaining ecosystems as well as the oceans and all that. It's like we're going down with the ship right now. We're in the 6th great extinction. And that's the web of life in which we live. You destroy that web and we go down with that web. So, I just really urge people to consider this an all-out state of emergency. We all have to mobilize. And remember, they're coming for your kids now. They're coming for your kids, and that bill is going to pass. Unless there's a massive mobilization to stop it, they're going to pass that. This is like a sneak attack to basically reinstitute the draft, led by the Democrats. So forget the lesser evil, fight for the greater good, like our lives depend on it. And we have to fight on all fronts. We need to fight in the streets. We need to fight, in the city. We need to fight on our campuses. And I mean, peacefully fight. But we've got to stand up and push back into the halls of power as well as in the streets. That is our only hope, and we are running out of time. So I really urge people to stand up and do the right thing. We have the power if we decide to use it. And if we do, we are absolutely unstoppable. Go to JillStein2024.com, and we need to take up our political arms here, because we are in the fight of our lives, and we need to be in the political fight as well.
Yeah,
that's why I'm with Nick with the voting shaming. That's one thing. As a non-voter, I get to do this. I get to vote shame from both sides. But like I like to say, you can't be a climate activist and be a part of the Democratic Party. It's just hypocritical, with all the bombing that you guys are doing all across this globe, with Biden giving up so much land to these oil execs, so much land in our oceans to these oil execs, so they can just steal and take whatever the fuck they want and fuck up our ozone layers even more. They are frying our fishes alive. Fishes are beaching themselves to get out of this hot ass water. You are messing up life, not only for us, but for animals and insects and all life on Earth. You are a hypocrite, and you are getting people killed. Now, it might not be as fast as Republicans like to kill people, but you are still killing people. And if you want to be part of the problem, you can stay with the Democratic Party. But if you're looking for a solution, if you're looking for a real solution, a real party to fight with, the Green Party will be a great party to start with. If you don't like the Green Party, look, it's for you naysayers, even you motherfuckers in here. If you don't like the Green Party, build your own party. Because look, it isn't about Dr. Jill Stein. This is about the future generations. So if she was to get us where we need to be, get those percentages that we need to be, we get the funding that we need, maybe we can try it again and again and again. And maybe she might hang up the tape. She might hang up she might hang it up one day, and we can take over the Green Party. Now we would have a strong foundation, and she already went through all of all of the court cases, and she's already been sued and beat on, and she did all the hard work for you. It's about building a goddamn
Right.
some infrastructure so you guys will have something in the future. Because if we was to leave you right now, if the Greens would just leave right now, what would you be left with? The Libertarian Party?
Right.
Come on.
Anyway,
now.
we gotta wrap up, guys. So I actually gotta get going. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Stein. I'll be back next. We got a lineup, a fat lineup of guests as always. So I'll be back next week. Make sure you guys support the library. Make sure you guys check out Dr. Stein's platform as well. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a good weekend. Take care.
Thanks so much.